It was barely 8 a.m. when Kevin Franklin called me into his office. His tone on the phone had been calm, but there was something in the air. Something off. I'd been with Franklin and Company for 15 years, 15 damn years, handling some of the biggest clients, including Apex Tech. And now, on a Tuesday morning, I was about to get blindsided. I walked in, expecting the usual, maybe another long meeting, more client talk. But Kevin didn't waste time with pleasantries. He slid an email across the desk, his fingers tapping impatiently on the edge of the folder. "You applied for a job at Tech Edge Solutions last Thursday," he said flatly, his eyes piercing mine like I'd just told him I killed someone. "What's this about, Frank?" I felt a tight knot twist in my stomach. That. I'd interviewed for a position, sure, but it was just an interview. Nothing more than me trying to feel out my options. I opened my mouth to explain, but Kevin cut me off before I could say a word. "Don't," he said, raising a hand. "I don't want excuses. You were disloyal. I thought you understood what this company has done for you, what I've done for you, but clearly you don't. Disloyalty." The word hit me like a punch to the gut. This was the same company that had passed me over for promotions for years, despite my long hours, the countless wins under my belt. No one ever acknowledged it, not Kevin, not the board. It had been one excuse after another. I tried to speak again, but he was already standing, shaking his head like he was disappointed in a kid who'd failed to show up to class. "It's over, Frank," Kevin said, his voice cold. "Effective immediately. Your access is revoked. Security will escort you out." I froze. My mind raced. The anger was there, but underneath it, there was something else. Relief. As I grabbed my stuff, I felt every eye in the office on me. Co-workers I'd spent years working with, now glancing at me like I was the bad guy. But I didn't care. Not anymore. The walk to my car felt strangely calm. No shouting, no dramatics. Just the dull ache of knowing my years at Franklin and Company had meant nothing. I threw my bag into the passenger seat and sat in the car for a moment, my hands on the wheel, staring at nothing. Then my phone buzzed. It was Jeff Hall, the CEO of Tech Edge Solutions, asking to meet with me at 2 p.m. I wasn't sure if I was supposed to be angry, confused, or relieved. But I knew one thing. This wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. I sat there in my car staring at my phone, still feeling the sting of Kevin's words. My hands tightened around the steering wheel, and I forced myself to breathe. Disloyal. The word echoed in my mind like a bad joke. But the truth was, I'd been loyal. Too loyal. I remembered the first day I walked into Franklin and Company, fresh out of college, full of hope and ambition. I wanted to prove I was worth the salary, worth the investment. Hell, I wanted to prove I was better than the guy before me, who'd barely made it past his 2-year mark. It didn't take long to figure out that hard work was the only thing that would get me anywhere. Back then, I thought that if I just did my job well enough, if I stayed late enough, took on enough responsibility, it would all pay off. I climbed the ladder step by step. I picked up the tough clients, learned to juggle them like balls in the air. Then came Apex Tech. I was handed their account a few years in, and at first, it felt like a blessing. A huge account like that could do wonders for someone's career. And for me, it did. I made their business grow. I kept them happy. I stayed up late tweaking their financials, meeting with their team every damn week, making sure I was always on top of things. I secured millions in contracts for Franklin and Company, making sure Apex Tech knew they were my priority. And still, Kevin looked past me. Year after year, I asked for the raise, the promotion, something to show I was more than just a workhorse. But every time, it was the same story. Tight budgets. Next year, Frank, company policy. I'd shown them the numbers. I'd laid out facts that proved I was worth every damn penny. But nothing changed. They kept giving me the same excuses, like I was too stupid to see through it. Like I didn't know they were pocketing the rewards for my hard work. After a while, the anger didn't even feel real anymore. I stopped fighting for it. I stopped asking. I just kept working. But inside, I was dying. And then 6 months ago, it happened. That massive new contract with Apex Tech, the one that would increase their business by 40%. I was certain this would be it. This was the moment they'd finally see me, finally appreciate me. Instead, I got the same answer. Maybe next year. That night, something snapped. I sat at my kitchen table, the empty bottle of wine beside me, and updated my resume for the first time in years. Not out of anger, but out of exhaustion. I was tired of waiting for the recognition that was never coming. Tired of giving everything for a company that never gave anything back. So, I made a decision. I didn't know where I'd go, but I knew I couldn't stay. And now, here I was, fired for trying to look for something better. Something that valued me. I wiped my hand across my face, trying to shake off the weight of it all. I thought about what was next. Back home, I sat on the edge of my bed, cardboard box in my lap. The remnants of my life at Franklin and Company piled inside. A few pens, a framed photo of my daughter from her high school graduation, a couple of binders, and a coffee mug I'd grabbed from the break room years ago. I didn't know what to feel. My mind was still spinning, like I was in some kind of bad dream. Fired. They didn't even give me a chance to fight back. Kevin just dropped it like a bomb, and that was it. I hadn't even said goodbye to the people who'd been working under me, my team, my clients. The anger was building, thick in my chest, but then, like a wave pulling back, I felt something else. Relief. The pressure, the constant push to do more, be more, and never be enough. It was gone. No more waiting for a raise that would never come. No more begging for respect that was never given. I wasn't a failure, I realized. I was free. My phone buzzed, pulling me from the silence. Tom, he worked IT at Franklin and Company, a friend of mine since we both started there. "Man, I can't believe this," he said when I picked up. "I heard what happened. Are you okay?" I let out a breath. "I don't even know, Tom." It all just hit me. "I've been telling you for months, Frank. You deserve better than that place. I mean, this is insane. After everything you've done for them." I ran a hand through my hair, feeling the weight of the years, all of it pressing down. "I never thought it would end like this." Tom sighed. "Kevin's already spun it. He told the whole team you were disloyal, that you were trying to steal Apex Tech away. People are talking, man. Some of them think you stabbed them in the back, but I know that's not true. I could feel the heat rise in my chest. Disloyalty. Kevin's word again. The man who'd treated me like a cog in his machine, and now he was painting me as the bad guy. I stayed quiet for a moment, letting it settle in. "I know you've got to say that, but I don't want to make a scene. I just want to move on." "Well, listen," Tom added. "Kevin's scared. He's already scrambling to keep Apex Tech. He knows they'll bail if you go to Tech Edge, and you should take that job. You've earned it." I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. "I'm not sure, man. I feel like I'm leaving my team behind." "You've been undervalued for years, Frank. Don't let that place keep dragging you down. You've got a chance to get what you deserve." I didn't answer right away. I just kept thinking about the team, the ones I'd led, the ones I'd fought for. But Tom was right. I'd fought for them more than I ever fought for myself, and it never mattered. I heard the beep of a new message. It was from Sarah, my ex-wife. She was always one to check in when things went sideways. "Heard what happened," the message read. "Are you okay?" I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the reply button. Am I okay? No, I wasn't okay. I didn't know what I was, not yet. But I couldn't bring myself to tell her. It felt like the last thing I needed. I set the phone down, stood up, and grabbed my coat. I was supposed to meet Jeff in an hour, and I wasn't going to sit here drowning in uncertainty. Maybe this was my chance to finally get it right. I stepped into Tech Edge Solutions with a knot in my stomach, trying to ignore the voice in the back of my head that was still whispering doubts. I had no idea what to expect, but I knew this could be the fresh start I needed. Jeff Hall greeted me with a firm handshake and that warm smile I remembered from the projects we'd worked on together. "Glad you could make it, Frank," he said, his voice genuine. "Come on in, let's sit down." We walked into a sleek conference room, and I took a seat across from Jeff, the calming smell of fresh coffee in the air. I'd always respected Jeff. He was one of the few people in the industry who didn't treat his employees like assets to be squeezed dry. He had a reputation for fairness, for actually caring about the people he worked with, and that's why, even though this felt like a huge leap, part of me was ready for whatever he was about to offer. "So, Frank," he started, leaning forward slightly, his hands folded in front of him. "We've been looking for someone with your skill set for a while now. We're growing fast, and we need someone who knows how to handle clients at the level you're used to." My heart picked up speed. I'd been managing top-tier accounts for years, but hearing it from Jeff, who had a way of making everything feel like a conversation instead of a pitch, somehow made it seem real. He continued, laying out the offer. The role is senior level, managing several key accounts, Apex Tech included. You'll have a lot of responsibility, but we know you're the right guy for the job. The salary is nearly double what you're making now, plus stock options and benefits. We also have a clear path to leadership here. My head spun for a moment. Double? The thought felt almost impossible to wrap around. It was everything I'd worked for and more, without the years of empty promises, without the constant begging for recognition. It was real, and it was mine for the taking. But I wasn't the kind of guy to jump into something without being clear about my intentions. Look, Jeff, I said, leaning forward myself, I'm at a point where I need to make a clean break. I can't keep carrying the weight of a company that's never given me anything in return. I want to do things right this time, with a team that values me. He nodded, understanding. You've earned that, Frank. And that's what we're offering here, an environment where what you bring to the table is appreciated, not just as a number, but as a person. I felt a wave of relief wash over me. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't just being sold an idea. This was real, and it felt right. When the meeting ended, I shook Jeff's hand again, and as I walked out of the building, the weight on my shoulders was lighter. I was done with Franklin and Company for good. The decision had been made, and as terrifying as it was to step away from the familiar, I knew it was the right move. Just as I was about to head to my car, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I glanced at the screen and saw Sarah's name pop up. I hesitated, but then answered. Hey, Sarah. Frank, her voice was hesitant, like she wasn't sure if she should be calling. I heard about what happened today. I don't know if you're still thinking about it, but TechEdge is going after Apex Tech, right? Do you have any inside information on that? They're offering you a position because of Apex Tech, aren't they? I paused, feeling the weight of her words. I didn't want to lie, but I also didn't want to drag her into this mess. I'm not sure what you mean, Sarah. I've been working with TechEdge on a few things, but I don't have any special intel or anything like that. She was quiet for a moment, then asked, So, are you reconsidering? Going back to Franklin and Company? Because if you know something that could help... I cut her off, my voice sharper than I intended. No, Sarah. I'm not going back. I've made my decision. It's over. I could hear the disappointment in her silence, but I didn't have the energy to explain myself again. The choice had been made, and there was no going back now. I hung up, staring at the screen for a moment before tossing my phone onto the passenger seat. It was time to move forward, no more looking back. The phone rang the next morning, the number unfamiliar. I debated ignoring it, but something made me pick up. Hello? Franks? A smooth voice came through. It was Elaine Winters, one of the board members at Franklin and Company. She'd been with the firm for years, one of the few who had ever seemed to recognize my value. Elaine, I said, my voice flat, not sure what she wanted. First off, I want to apologize for how things went down with Kevin, she said, her tone steady but not cold. I know you've been with the firm a long time, and what happened was wrong. Kevin acted without consulting the board, and we'd like to meet with you to discuss the situation and explore a possible reinstatement. I didn't respond right away, letting her words hang in the air. Part of me was tempted to just hang up. What could they offer me now that would make any of this right? But I stayed on the line, knowing there was more to come. Elaine continued, her voice laced with the same rehearsed professionalism I'd heard countless times before. Frank, we value the work you've done. The success with Apex Tech, your leadership. It's clear you're someone we can't afford to lose. We'd like to make things right and offer you a better compensation package to come back. I felt the bile rise in my throat. Compensation package? The same empty promises I'd heard every year for the last decade. They were offering me more now, but only because they were afraid. Afraid of losing the biggest client they had. I've already made my decision, I said, my voice calm but firm. I've accepted a position elsewhere. There was a pause on the other end. I could practically hear her brain working overtime, calculating her next move. Frank, she said, a little more urgently now, this is a mistake. You don't have to leave. The offer we're prepared to make would be hard to refuse. I cut her off before she could go any further. Elaine, it's not just about the money anymore. It's about respect. And I haven't had that for a long time. I'm done. She didn't say anything for a moment. I could hear the frustration in her silence, but I wasn't about to let her drag me back in. Not now. Not after everything. I understand, she said finally, sounding more resigned than I expected. But please, just think it over. We want you back. The offer stands. I was done. No, I said firmly. I've made my choice. Before she could say anything else, I hung up. I felt a strange sense of closure. The call had gone exactly as I expected, and I had held my ground. But as I stood there, staring at the phone, I knew this wouldn't be the last time Franklin and Company tried to pull me back. The phone buzzed again, a text message from Tom. Kevin's in full panic mode. He's trying to salvage the Apex Tech account. Looks like he's already in damage control. I couldn't help but smile, even though it felt a little bitter. Kevin's scrambling now, and it felt damn good to know I was the one holding the power. It was official. There was no going back. A few days had passed since I'd stepped into my new role at TechEdge Solutions, and things were already moving faster than I could process. I'd been briefed on the Apex Tech account, and the team here was already thinking ahead about how we could improve the partnership. It felt like a breath of fresh air. Finally, a company that was looking at growth, not just surviving. I was introduced to my new team, 5 senior strategists who, after hearing about my background, seemed to be impressed by what I could bring to the table. It wasn't the same as Franklin and Company, where I'd spent years trying to prove myself. Here, they respected my experience right off the bat, and I could feel a shift in the way I carried myself. Let's set the tone for this, I said as I addressed them on the first day. We're going to take charge, stay ahead of the curve, and always be prepared. Apex Tech isn't just another account. We need to think long-term and set them up for success. The room was quiet for a moment, but their nods and focused expressions told me they were ready. This wasn't just about fixing problems anymore. It was about creating something better, something that would make Franklin and Company look like they were still stuck in the past. As I settled into my new routine, the weight on my shoulders slowly began to lift. It wasn't just the change of scenery, it was the power shift. I wasn't the one on defense anymore. I was in control. Then my phone buzzed one afternoon, and I saw a message from an old colleague at Franklin and Company. My stomach tightened as I opened it. They're all watching Kevin try to salvage the Apex Tech account. It's clear they're panicking. Apex Tech is reviewing their contract and even invited you to pitch their new business model. I stared at the screen for a moment, letting the news sink in. Apex Tech was reviewing their contract with Franklin and Company, and they wanted me to pitch their new business model? It wasn't just a ripple effect. It was a damn tidal wave. I couldn't deny the satisfaction that washed over me. It wasn't that I wanted to see Franklin and Company crash and burn, but seeing them scramble like this felt earned. I replied quickly, telling my old colleague that I'd agreed to pitch their new model, but I'd only present our vision. The selection would be Apex Tech's call. This wasn't about me getting back into the fray. It was about knowing I was in control of my own future now. Whether Apex Tech chose TechEdge or went back to Franklin and Company didn't matter. I was no longer in the position of waiting for someone else to decide my fate. Then, just as I was getting back to work, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text from one of my old team members at Franklin and Company. Hey Frank, we're working on the Apex Tech pitch. Any chance you could give us some advice? We could really use your insight on this one. I read the message twice, letting it sink in. After everything, they needed me now. It wasn't just that they wanted help. It was that they had no choice but to turn to me. They had underestimated me for years, and now they were the ones scrambling. I stared at the message for a long time. I could help them, sure. I could throw them a bone. But I wasn't sure if I wanted to anymore. Part of me felt good about them coming to me for advice. The other part of me, the part that was tired of being undervalued, felt like they could figure it out on their own. I took a breath, knowing what my next step would be. This was about me now. It had always been about me. The power had shifted, and I wasn't about to give it away. The day finally came. Apex Tech announced they were officially leaving Franklin and Company and moving their business to TechEdge Solutions. It wasn't a surprise to anyone who'd been paying attention, but it still felt like a punch to the gut for Kevin, who was scrambling to salvage what was left of his reputation. I was notified that the transition process was set to begin immediately. The first steps were in motion. Clients were being contacted, plans were being laid out. Apex Tech's move was happening, and I was right in the center of it all. My phone buzzed just as I was wrapping up a meeting. It was Kevin. I stared at the name for a long moment. Part of me thought about answering, but I wasn't interested in hearing his excuses. I already knew the script. He was probably calling to ask me to come back, to beg me to fix things for him. I didn't pick up. I didn't need to. He had no power over me anymore. I leaned back in my chair, letting the reality of it sink in. The last few years, all the bullshit, all the disappointments, it didn't matter anymore. The score had been settled without a word from me. Kevin had lost something he never fully appreciated, and it wasn't just the business. It was his grip on me, the control he thought he had. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from an old colleague at Franklin and Company. Heard what happened. Crazy how things turned out. I'm sorry, Frank. You deserve better. It wasn't the first message like this. Some reached out with apologies, others just a quick message of regret. One even tried to tell me how they'd been right behind me all along. But I wasn't stupid. I saw through it all. I didn't need validation from them. Not anymore. The people who'd never believed in me were the same ones reaching out now because they saw where the power had shifted. But the thing was, they had never been part of the solution, and I didn't need to prove anything to them. I turned my phone off and leaned back in my chair again, this time with a different kind of weight on my chest. I wasn't angry, wasn't plotting some kind of dramatic revenge. The way everything had played out, well, that was the statement. No words needed.